Hello everybody, we've Raj this side again, presenting you new and a very not exactly new, but new to my channel basically. Very let's call a very important aspect of a state or a government and how is it run, known as bureaucracy. Bureaucracy theory of bureaucracy by Max Weber. Max Weber was American. I mean, he was a economic sociologist and a political scientist who was born in Germany, and he gave the theory of bureaucracy, which uh, I want first of all you to think that he, in the past centuries, have had imagined the way a bureaucratic system would represent itself in the contemporary society back in those days. So, I would like to stress upon power of imagination first, like the power of thought process, the rationality he imagined uh, at that time, and he produced a very elaborative form of bureaucracy, which is being practiced all over the world today. And Max Weber's theory is being the supportive part for the supportive as the as like a theory which is basic for a bureaucracy or a state which is fully established basically. Like a developing country cannot have a bureaucracy which is very successful. It is a primitive concept. Okay, a developed state can have a very successful bureaucracy. So I will like to start with the like to start with the. I have my notes somewhere down the line. I mean, graduation. I learned this theory when I was doing my undergrad. I got a chance to learn this theory in a very elaborative platform. Though this video will not help you to get that elaborative idea of what exactly bureaucracy is, because I'll be very concise and crisp in explaining what bureaucracy theory of Max Weber is. The reason being for this is because internet poor internet connection which I have. Yeah. So if you anyone of you who is viewing this video and has a review about it, or you want me to elaborate more after the concluding part of this video, I would be making another one. If you will suggest me, or you can just ask me to write a comment or something like that. Okay, you want it in a more elaborate form, so I'll be producing a lot about bureaucracy, which actually I have learned in my graduation, just with a very passionate manner, right? So bureaucracy, what is the term known as bureau is the word which describes bureaucracy. Bureau means desk, a desk, a desk where a civil servant, like like we have in India, civil servants like IAS, IPS, IF, and other people, other diplomats and the officials running the state machinery. In this platform, the particular seat he occupies, the particular region of geographical identity or any basis, he after passing through many tough examinations which I have experienced myself too and failed. No doubt, I'm not that good at in things in every platform. So basically, bureau means desk. It's a French word. Max Weber was a sociologist, I told you. Accordingly, his characteristics of bureaucracy was the major part I want to discuss is the characteristic of the bureaucracy, which takes the form the theory of Max Weber of bureaucracy. So I will first take a historical approach in which I would like to describe the bureaucracy as a platform where the state has been operating itself. Right, I'm really sorry for the poor quality of the webcam, but unfortunately, I have to adjust basically to accept my viewers. So, in the historical approach, we can say that it the bureaucracy was not a new concept which Max Weber elaborated in late 1970s, I guess. Yeah. It was not that new, not in 1970s or 1770s. So it was not that new. It was already being in practice in ancient Rome and China, and also existed in India, where, like, if you go by the Arthashastra of the Kautilya, we get to know more about bureaucratic officials, the state machinery, how it was operated during that time. So I mean, the if even a monarch or a authoritarian government or a totalitarian government is establishing a state machinery, bureaucracy is the first step for that state, right? The historical view, the perspective is that in history it was practiced in various forms in China, Rome, Europe, France, and even in India, as I just said. So, I would like to quote H.J. Lasky's definition of bureaucracy, in which he says, bureaucracy is a system of government, the control of which is so completely in the hands of the officials that their power jeopardizes the liberties of ordinary citizens. So, it is a critical review, basically, but not that critical that it can be quoted as a criticism for Max Weber's theory. But H.J. Lasky has been elaborating in a manner that bureaucracy is basically a theory which limits the power of ordinary citizen, liberty of ordinary citizen. Why? Because the control comes into the hand of not elected representatives, but the state. I mean the civil servants, which are not politically motivated or having a aim for like getting votes or having a productive right, but they ensure the running of the machinery, which indeed requires us great ability to do so. But they at times come into a form which let the ordinary citizen, a very ordinary citizen. I'm not considering the elite or the other like other personalities, but I'm considering a very layman idea of ordinary citizen, a person next door neighbor maybe, whose liberties get constrained by the practice of bureaucracy, right? So Weber, while describing sorry, we write it as Weber, but it's Weber, Weber. Weber is, I mean, it's pronounced in this way. This is what I learned during reading of my sociological aspects. So Max Weber made a distinction, making a theory of bureaucracy between power and authority. Power, he says, is something which is the ability to rule, right? Ability to force people to obey the head regardless of their resistance, right? And authority is something which exists where orders are voluntarily obeyed by the receiving team at the end of the corner. So to legitimize authority, organizations and types are there, which we are not going to be stressing upon in this video because we are not dealing with authority or power. But I mean, I have introduced this authority and power concept of Max Weber just with a very plain definition, that too in my own words, which obviously I've made notes of. I would like to more specifically on what Max Weber tries to establish through his theory of bureaucracy in the form of characteristics or the features, or let's call, I will not specify the characteristic, but I will say that in the form of a very lucid manner, point by point, I will give you seven to six types, not types, seven to six features of bureaucracy, which will make the viewer understand what the idea of a bureaucracy particularly is about what. So point number one, primarily bureaucratic authority. The principle is that the principle of fixed official jurisdiction areas which are generally ordered by rules, and bureaucratic authority is the first characteristic I'm discussing. So I mean, I will say authority is a more word which I want to stress over here. As I defined it, it's the power to make a person follow the rules right? It's the orders or in the form of rules. So the bureaucratic authority, if I say, is something which is like in the hands of the civil servants, which they use to command the ordinary citizens. Like I have been telling you in just a minute back, right? So, bureaucratic authority is this much. I mean, and secondly is the principle of hierarchy. I will now put a more stressful effect of the word hierarchy over here. Hierarchy is something which defines the level of the power or the level of the service you are going to provide to the citizen being a civil servant. Like if I say there's if I take the example of Indian police services, the hierarchy is so that the immediate joining position of an IPS officer, if he chooses so, would be by the state into the form of a district superintendent. But above the district superintendent is there are other officials like IG, DIG, commissioner, and etc. etc. As we are already familiar with the Bollywood stuff of the police and especially the South Indian South Indian Bollywood, which has actually which has actually displayed the Indian police service in various. I mean, the civil services in various movies and everything, which makes it they have actually been very relevant in that. Okay. So third principle I want to discuss or characteristic is uh, the modern organization, principle of modern organization. As I've been stressing, that bureaucracy is not a new concept. It was practiced earlier. It was there in the ancient times, in the medieval times, and obviously in modern contemporary times, as we are discussing right now. But provided that it is being practiced in a very modern organization, a state which is fully developed, a state which is not fully developed or is developing slowly, the bureaucratic thing will not exist over there. Why I will come to that time point in some time. So the position of the official is very important. Official holding is a vocation, right? Requirement demands entire capacity of work for a long period of time and is generally prescribed and uh, prescribed as with the special examination which an individual goes through while getting into the system of the government, the getting a position in the system of the government, like in as I've been saying, the position of the official. You have to this position is something which is achieved by a very crucial examination which we call the civil services examination in India specifically. And during the colonial times of India under the British rule, the Indian civil services was introduced, where the people used to, where only very elite people used to get. So this Indian civil service system, and I mean the officers were very much into the format in agreeing with the British government at that time. Those officials basically. Also, okay, I will not go to the colonialism right now. Colonialism. Let's focus on democracy. So, we are discussing the modern application. I mean the position and the modern application. So now I have I'll quote something. I'll quote a line. I'll quote a line. Modern loyalty is devoted to impersonal and functional purposes. Right. Modern loyalty is devoted to impersonal and functional purposes. Like what is I'm trying to say is now what requires in present cases. This is what is required in present cases. Modern loyalty से हमारा मतलब क्या निकलता है? Modern loyalty is loyalty. I mean when this. I mean this. I mean when I try to conclude this video, I will state one line which I'm saying right now. Also, just now, is that the bureaucratic or the bureaucrat is a subordinate, or like let's call a part of executive, which is an executive which is subordinate to the legislature and has to obey the orders of legislature without putting an derogative part into it or a question mark against the orders of a political person who is obviously above him. The freedom of decision making is limited. So the modern loyalty now raises the question that is the person a politically influenced official or is he a state official who is independent of a very independent in decision making, right? I can say that personal servant of a ruler can also be a question over here because we know and we have been seeing the practice of state officials being chamchas to the political officials, political representatives of government, uh, and this is done, as the Weber says, is done because to ensure that the seat or the position of the bureaucrat remains intact. If he does not, we know that he gets transferred. We have seen in Bollywood and South Indian Bollywood movies that the position is very much detriment to the fact that it is to be held with respect to the political official, right? So the question looms is whether the civil official is also a political official. I leave this question to you to think and comment because if I'll comment, I do not know if the car savers or the people who are against the freedom of expression might put me into behind bars, something like that. Maybe not, maybe yes. I do not know. I'm doing it at my own liberty. So the personal position of the official is patterned in a following ways. Number one is distinct social esteem and prescriptive rules of order, rank order. So I have quoted two words: distinct social esteem and prescriptive rules of rank order. Distinct social esteem, I means that when Weber was describing this, he says that this bureaucrat in a bureaucratic structure of state has to be held in high self-esteem. Otherwise, he will not be able to compete with the within the will compete for the position or say hierarchy rise. It wouldn't be possible for him because he will not be able to prove his value, prove his ability at the level best. He has to have a self-esteem. After all, he's a civil servant. He represents the state people. I mean, the state representative. I'm not. I mean, not doing to the political official, but state representative. Obviously, he is. Right. So prescriptive rules of rank order means that there is a level of working. There's a machinery which operates, which says that the bureaucrat is to be a part of that state machinery. Right. So I'll put it in a more. I would have put it in a more elaborative form, but this video restricts me because uploading speed and everything I have to check and create stuff, and I also cannot be that much critical to the situations. So, in the next point, I again describing is the possession of educational certificate are usually linked with qualification for office. Now, the sentence is itself a very contradictory statement which Weber has made, and I have noted in the same manner. But why is it contradictory? Because we can particularly see that if we take the example of India, just bachelor's is the bachelor with minimum of 45 percentile of the average percentile of a person is required for you to be a civil servant. I mean, it's the eligibility level to be the civil servant. I mean, now what is happening is that people, I have seen cases in India where people who opt for civil services first go for studying the public policy, which is not that popular subject to be studied in India because you have very limited institutes providing it. But these officials go to schools like Howard Kennedy and Stanford or Pennsylvania or Philadelphia, wherever they find the scope for a much betterment. Even you can say or you can see this I mean, this umbrella system that they join with the bachelors and then they opt to go for higher studies uh, to abroad in states or be it kingdom or be Britain anywhere where they get that prestigious public policy readings and everything and they grasp the level of a public servant, and then they come back to India, return back to India, and apply those theories to working of the state machinery, and they're very much highly appreciated. There is a scope for these civil servants for their learning. They can opt for public policy courses in a manner of learning in India also, but this is a very limited scope. You have to, and the competition is very hard basically. And after competing for civil services examination and getting selected by competing for 3 stages, and you getting selected and getting joined, and after training you wish to, I mean, who wishes to study after training? Who would like to just go through the public policy meanings and stuff and then saying, yeah, I mean, it's a little atypical thing for me. Okay, so I mean, the question looms is that is a person who is holding a bachelor's degree with 45 percentile, and a person who's holding a doctorate of public policy from Harvard, Kennedy, or Stanford, or Oxford, or Cambridge, and then being a recommended person for civil services. Who is the best one? I do not want to judge the ability just with the certificates, because many person who are not capable financially to sustain in that US department, you learning the public policy structure from the broad education, foreign education may be sufficiently at the level best in guide in implying the rules of state to the working of the state machinery. But still, I mean, there's a point to think for us that a person holding a PhD or a master's in public policy from the institutes, and then being a civil servant, or a person with just a bachelor's being a civil servant. I mean, after my bachelor's, my parents forced me for appearing in UPSC, and I don't think I was that capable to understand the public policy level of, like, or the level of thought I should have applied in the examination. Right. All right. So next point is the pure type of bureaucratic official is appointed by a superior without with the, I mean, is appointed by a superior who can be an elected official. Right. I'm talking about the third stage of the civil service examination. Uh, uh, in respect to India, not to any other state or nation. Excuse me. You can well imagine at 1:32 p.m. a.m. in the morning. I mean, in the night, I need coffee for survival to make this video. So, the person who clears prelims, then goes for mains, and then goes for the interview. You are one of the person who is going for or suppose you are going for an interview for civil service examination, which is the final stage for the selection. And we are dealing with a pure type of bureaucracy over here. So we can say that when we enter into that room, when you enter into that room and you find that the person sitting behind the desk who is going to judge you, judge your abilities, judge your potential level, your understanding of things and everything, and your rationality, of course, is someone who is not a person who himself has have these kind of abilities, but he's just an elected representative or an elected official for the interview panel. So this looms that the political influence of the state, or the politicians or the democratic representatives as chosen, is implied in the selections for this bureaucratic officials. So concluding this point at a very, let's say, contradictory or a very conflicting statement, that at the state level, not at the center level, of course, but at the state level, when the selection is done for the position of a bureaucrat, the corruption looms at large in the interview panel at the PCA state level, public civil service, right? So this state civil services selection is a bit complicated with the part of pleasing the interview panel, I would say. The manner can be materialistic or immaterialistic, comparing it to intelligence level if they judge so, but this doesn't happen. What happens is the opposite. I do not want to go into details. I'm scared of being behind the bars. So the greater dependence on the master is a great guarantee of the conformity with the status conventions. What is this meaning? Political influence and decision making is this conclude. Political influence in the decision making of a bureaucrat is very much uh, visible in the uh, present and the contemporary times. I do not have read any study which says that this kind of influence was there in the past, when which we just discussed, like in Rome or France or wherever. India, or particularly in Maurya, the Gupta's period and Ashoka's period, where we find this eminent officials working for the king. So, decision making is obviously one of the factor which is like to be considered, and influence of political organization, political representative on this is a very much kind of a contra or influential thing. Okay, so I am describing a very. Uh, I am trying to put out statements wise descriptive idea of theory of bureaucracy by Max Weber. Kindly try and look at it in the manner that in an era when Max Weber gave this ideas is in the 21st century applicable as such, and we can see the practical influences of such things, such a theory. It is pretty much judgeable. Pretty much we can judge the thing. Okay, how imaginative Weber could be while providing this theory, right? So, the official receive regular compensation of a normally fixed salary and the old age security provided by a pension, which is like so say monetary compensation against the status is a question over here. I mean, what is the monetary compensation? The salary or the perks and the benefits the civil servant achieves and gains. And but I would say that the salary of the official which he receives is from the taxes which the general public pays. Right. So I'm not saying that the official shouldn't be paid. I am just having a thought process, or I'm just having a question in my mind, which to which solution I cannot find. I mean, I don't know. I mean, I may not have that rationality, but paying of taxes by the public and using that taxes to pay the salaries of the civil servants and obviously the political representatives in return of the services for public itself. Isn't this something very typically apolitical? I mean, one of the major question which political science should be dealing with. We pass economic budget every year. Surveys are done. Everything is done. Consolidated fund, contingency fund. I mean, the salaries are being given. But the point is there a selfless concept established for services given to people in a democratic parliamentary or a representative democracy or parliamentary democracy? Is it being even thought about it? This thing is very much disturbing part for me. Right. So next point I would like to insist upon hierarchy. The official is set for a career within the hierarchical order or the public service, as I have explained in the beginning. But hierarchy exists. Can I again? I mean, this entire video when I'm making is entirely something in which I'm trying to question the aspects of bureaucracy in its existence itself. So, considering hierarchy, so can it be said this hierarchy put a control on the efficiency? If I am an IPS and I am newly recruited, let's say I has a newly recruited and I get a district under me as my first joining, and after joining my district, if you remember, Okay, I'll make a better statement, a better example. If you have seen Ayushman Khurrana's Article 15, a recently released movie, not to go on Article 15, but to go with the movie, the picture, the film. In Article 15, Ayushman Khurrana represents a newly designated IPS officer, in which he is given a district under him. Obviously, being a superintendent of police, he receives a district. He gets a district to supervise and perform services, which over there he is doing selflessly. But I have this aspect ke, somewhere down the line in that movie, if you have seen, you will have seen that he there is kind of rigid structure of hierarchy which is set up step by step, and civil servants are part of that hierarchy, be it at the bottom level, be it at the bottom level, or be it at the top level. Any civil servant who is at the top level obviously tries to restrict, impose orders. Authority and power question again comes up. It tries to impose the idea upon the lower civil servant, and this hierarchy absolutely puts a mark on the efficiency level, because the decision making cannot be independent. Bureaucratic structure, or a bureaucrat is judged by his decision making levels. So if I take example of a civil servant based in my city, not naming the city particularly, anyone who knows can know where I belong to, but I don't want to go there. I would like to say that belonging to this particular city in a particular state where one of the civil servants during this coronavirus stuff comes up with a very strict order that there will be a curfew, and Article 144 would be put into force, and there will be, before the lockdown scenario came, he established this thing because the corona cases were being increased very rapidly, increasing on a very rapid state and rapid level, and this civil servant who's the collector establishes an order by he himself coming on streets to check and protect the people. But unfortunately, he got very little support because curtailing public liberty, that too in a democracy, is something, be it for any purpose, right? Be it for any purpose, but it is obviously objectionable, and people didn't support him. But he didn't go transfer or something. But I have quoted this example because I'm trying to show the hierarchical system that a district collector level, not at the secretariat level of the state, but at the district collector level, he can establish a curfew or a strike upon the liberty movement of the people, and he is well established in the decision making power. So basically, over here the question doesn't come for decision making, obviously not that good example, but if it has to be restricted, it is to be restricted. And it had been a case, to not to judge the system, but this example which I just quoted is related with the aspect that the civil servant had to face a scrutiny level. If the WikiLeaks things work for the video I'm making, so he was criticized at a state level, which is a little astonishing because he was doing selfless work and for a welfare state. But unfortunately, the things didn't work out. We had a very high level of cases in this city. So another point which I'm saying is a stable system of taxation, as I have just quoted. Taxation is a precondition for the permanent existence of a bureaucratic and administrative services. Like we are talking about a modern state, we are not talking about a very particularly developing or underdeveloped or trying to develop state. We are talking about modern democracy in which administration and bureaucracy exists, and exists because the taxes are being paid, right? Taxes of the people are being paid and collected by the government for giving the giving the giving in return services to the people. So again, coming back to the same point which I just tried to establish before in a few minutes back, is the usage of public money for the services to the public. Is it actually a welfare state, or is it just a give and take relationship? I mean, who is being benefited is a question which looms. The public pays the taxes irrespective of anything, be it power or authority of the government. Public pays taxes. You can judge it in any way. You are free to think, but if one tries to put it in a more broad manner, the taxes are used to, let's say, build a road for the public convenience, but it's the money of public can expect something else also. Or can I say the productive level productive or the qualitative level of the public services is not that efficient considering the part of India, or yeah, okay, India. So public pays taxes and does not get the quality of the services, and the productivity level of the services is poor. So I don't think that is justified. Is it? I don't think so. I mean, who agrees that I pay a tax of around like one lakh for 1 year, and in return I do not even get a proper road built in my colony or my specific residential area. So this is something I will not accept. Being a free citizen and trying living in a democracy where I chose a representative for myself, and he is ditching me or like trying to not fulfill the services in a self-service platform. Okay, so I'll now summarize this bureaucratic structure because a lot of discussion we have. I'll put forward a second video if you guys want to get a more broader version of this bureaucratic thing. But I would like to conclude this video by saying that uh, bureaucratic structure is something which Karl Marx has criticized in a very sophisticated manner during his way of criticizing things in a communist or in a manner in which he says that I will first discuss Karl Marx criticism for this bureaucracy thing, and then I will go with the criticism which are which are very general in terms. So Marx says that Karl Marx, a great philosopher, of course, the communist, the Marxism thing, the idea is very much. I will sometime try to produce it in this in a video platform and put it on the channel. But as of now, he says that it will help in the arise of economic context. Bureaucrat and the bureaucracy will start thinking in a manner. If we go by the Max Weber theory, or if we go by a general theory of bureaucracy, which a layman assumes, a bureaucrat and a bureaucracy structure will go into the context of economic or monetary linkages to itself, right? And hierarchy of knowledge is also a concept which Marx put into the field, as I have discussed. Authority, obviously, and he says that it will there will be elitism. Bureaucrat will serve the elite, the bourgeois. He will not serve, or she will not serve, the proletariat. It will be in the benefit of the bourgeois. How? Because if he serves the bourgeois, indeed he's serving the political official, indeed he's serving the purpose of he indeed is serving the existence level of he sitting behind the desk. Because if he serves the proletariat and does not go with the intentions of serving only the bourgeois, I'm not saying, I'm not establishing that bourgeois only he should, or proletariat only he should serve. Rather, I'm saying that there should be no distinction made between bourgeois and proletariat while serving as a bureaucratic official. So, basically, this is the basic criticism which Marx has given. The other criticisms are very much simple, like red tapeism and anti-humanist structure, or corrupt practices, or any such thing which happens in bureaucracy for the existence of a bureaucrat, right? Is something which is very prominently active in countries, or specifically country like India. So I will like to conclude this video now by making one or two statements. By just saying that bureaucracy is something which is the need of the hour, need of a democracy, but it is to be practiced in a manner in which the political influence upon the bureaucrat should not be there. Over here, by making this statement, I'm like making a distinction between a bureaucrat who joins the state machinery to serve the people, and a bureaucrat who joins the state machinery just to get the status, which is very much material in its aspect, be it monetary or public status or anyways. So this thing should be very much be considered. And like it's already 40 minutes video, so it will take time to get upload. So I'll keep my mouth shut for some time and now end this video. Thank you for watching. I hope you are able to tolerate me. Please do it. And I'm also trying to establish this concept, like making social sciences somehow relevant to general public by making videos, because I believe that whatever I have learned half or full naked, it should not be limited to me. It should be produced at a broader level to for everyone to get to know it, if I'm giving it in a right manner or not. Thank you for watching. Good night, I can say right now, because it's 2 in a.m. But I hope in the morning when you watch this video, you appreciate it, or at least criticize it to me, for me to improve it. Right? Thank you so much. Take care. Bye bye.